Hey there, I'm Steve, and welcome to Jamson Entertainment. And welcome to the conversation. Just before we get started, there are many ways you can help. You can like and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. But most importantly, please share this video. Get the word out there so we can talk about all the things that we love. I recently just saw The Iron Claw, starring Zac Efron, Holt McConnelly, sorry for mispronouncing your name, Maura Tierney, Harris Dickinson, Stanley Simmons, Jeremy Allen White, Scott Innes, Lily James, Kevin Anton, and Aaron Dean Eisenberg. And this is written and directed by Sean Durkin. I know recently I've been saying a lot of directors' names. It's not often that I do. Last few are because they're directors I really like. In this instance, it's for the same reason why The Last Jedi doesn't work. I'm unfamiliar with Sean Durkin. This may be the first film I've ever seen of his. I don't know. But just before I turned on the camera, the thought came to me that it seems like he went on to the Wikipedia page of the Von Erichs and wrote a script around that. What I mean by that is, Kevin Von Erich is the main quote-unquote focus character, and then it highlights everyone else. In fact, it really even kind of highlights Kevin's life. And this movie is an emotional roller coaster. The only problem is how it's told. I sort of bawl my eyes out because of the tragedy that this family has gone through. I'm not a wrestling fan, really. I got into it a few years ago because of a friend of mine I used to hang out with, and he was a huge wrestling fan, and I do regret not being a fan in the 90s when it was at its height, the Attitude Era, because it's where we got The Rock, who's now an amazing actor. This movie is the first time I've ever heard of the Von Erichs, and I'm not a fan, to reiterate, and I feel that this movie could have been told better. The movie starts out with showing the father, Jack Von Erich, which you learn in the movie. The father actually changed his name to, I think, his grandmother's last name, maybe his mom's last name, and it would be Kevin's grandmother's last name, because we learned that in the movie by Kevin telling his wife Pam. People told him growing up his grandmother's last name, Von Erich, is cursed. He says he doesn't put any kind of stock into that, but things just keep on happening. Horrible things. And so he puts more and more stock into it as the movie goes on. So I kind of got a little ahead of myself. So the movie opens up with the father wrestling and how he's like, I'm on my way to become the world champion. And he has his two little boys, Kevin and David. When you fast forward, now he has four boys. They're all adults, with the youngest, Michael, being probably a senior in high school. Jack Von Erich runs the World Class Championship Wrestling Company, and he competes with other wrestling companies. This is the late 70s, early 80s to mid 80s that this movie takes place. So this is really before what was the World Wrestling Federation is now the World Wrestling Entertainment. Pretty sure that's what the WWE stands for now. So the little history I know about wrestling is that there used to be wrestling companies across the nation. I don't know how many there were, but eventually, from my understanding, they all got up by Vince McMahon. Okay, so what I really mean by it seems like he just went to the Wikipedia and wrote a script around it. Sure, it starts out with the father, but then it starts to focus in on Kevin. And for the most part, this movie is about Kevin. But then it's like, well, here's David's spotlight, and here's his life in 15 minutes. And then here's Curry and his life in 15, 20 minutes. And then here's Michael. And they kind of sprinkle him throughout the movie, but he only really gets focused on maybe 5 minutes. As I was watching the movie, not only was I having thoughts like that, but I was also thinking this would have made an amazing miniseries. You do an episode for each family member. Start out with the dad, he's in wrestling, and he has an interesting backstory. They tell it briefly in here. He was a musician, he was really good at it. He wanted to get into football because he didn't think there was any money in music. And it's the wife, the mother, that tells this story about his backstory that the kids don't find out themselves until later in their life. And he used to play for his wife when they first started dating. So you could have had like an entire 2-hour episode just for the father. Like every family member could have gotten a 2-hour episode. I know that's movie length. Okay, so maybe like an hour and a half for each family member. I guess you could do it in an hour. I don't know. But this movie just would have been far better as a miniseries. One thing that hit me at the end of this movie, and I'm talking like the last 30 seconds, I did notice it, but I didn't notice the reason behind it, or at least what I believe the reason behind this. Kevin Von Erich, he's barefoot in a lot of this movie. He always wrestles barefoot, and at the end of the movie he's playing with his kids and he's barefoot again. And I think because I saw him barefoot on grass, and I don't know how familiar this phrase is with everyone, but there's a phrase that goes touch grass. It means get back to reality. The way I'm interpreting the fact that Kevin's barefoot for most of this movie, he's the most grounded person in the Von Erich family. And it's very true because he is the focus of the movie. Now, if you don't go with my idea of making this into a miniseries, you certainly could have made this Kevin's movie and incorporate the rest of the family. There are a ton of movies out there like that. Whether it be a biopic like this one or a fictional one, it's possible. It's just this one didn't do it. At least I feel it didn't do it. Another interesting thing is that they do show you behind the scenes of wrestling back in the day. Hopefully your kids aren't watching this because they probably still believe that wrestling is real, quote unquote, which is even brought up within the movie when Kevin starts dating his future wife Pam. She says, "Oh, it's not real," and Kevin's like, "No, it's absolutely real." I mean, think of the titles as job promotion, which is an interesting way to look at it. I never would have thought of it that way. If you're doing well in the field, you're going to have a chance at the world title. It's just not, okay, in 6 months you'll get it. It's no, we'll see in 6 months if you're worthy or not of it. And I'm sure that's how it is still in the World Wrestling Entertainment Company. But other behind the scenes things were like, and I've learned this because of the friend I used to have, they're rivals out in the ring, but behind the scenes, I mean, there were rivalries that I've heard of in wrestling, like real ones behind the scenes and in front of the camera, but a lot of them, from my understanding, in front of the camera, they were rivals. Behind the camera, they were brothers. And they would go over, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do things this way. This is how it's going to be choreographed. And it's interesting that they're showing that part of the business. They're not just showing the show part, which can be entertaining in and of itself. It's amazing what wrestlers can do. With all that said, I did enjoy myself with this movie for the most part. However, if I'm going to watch this again, it's going to be on streaming, and that's how I recommend that you catch this. Those are my thoughts on The Iron Claw. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and live your imagination.